Robert Bryce is here. 2026 Power Trends. Fragility of the electric grid, one of my favorite things to talk about there, partner. First off, you know the definition, what is it? And then why do people need to know about it? How do we fix this? How long will it take? I mean, there we go with the whole show. I mean, like I was saying, when he gave me that point, I was like, this is a massive topic. But go ahead, do the best you can, man.
Well,
Yeah, right?
let's start with the power grid and why we care. This is the mother network. This is the network upon which all of our modern society depends, whether it's hospitals, traffic lights, communication, water systems, you name it, heating, lighting. All of our cultural, all of our societal support networks depend on the power grid. So if we lose the power grid, we are in a world of hurt. I could use a more colorful language here, Tom, but we're on radio, so I'm going to be very where
Thank you.
could go bad very, very quickly.
We
So
get it.
we cannot overstate rather the importance of the power grid when it comes to overall society and the needs of society. So we have to be very careful when we think about how we make sure that, or how we assure the reliability, resilience, and affordability of electric power. And we've taken that for granted for decades. And now, with the addition of a lot of weather dependent generation, solar and wind, I'm a longtime critic of both, particularly big wind, very unpopular across rural Michigan. I'm a longtime critic, and proudly so. As we've added a lot of this weather dependent generation, we've made the grid more fragile. It's been fragilized by this. So this is what we saw in Spain last year, this over dependence on weather dependent generation. So these are very important questions, and I believe regulators are starting to understand this and starting to pay more attention. But we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. The fixing the problems that we're facing and assuring cheap, abundant, reliable power in that order is one of the key challenges of the next decade.
Okay, here's where I want to jump in here because I don't know why I didn't think of this before when we were talking about this because I'm a physical component guy, okay? And so this is just dawned on me, I swear to God, you guys. Fragility of the electric grid. There's two components here. What Robert was just talking about, which is the huge component, the feed, as I would call it, the feed, and then you have the physical layer of the infrastructure itself. And when I think of the fragility of the network, I think of the actual physical components, the actual hardware, the wire, the substations, that kind of stuff. That's just part of it, everybody. That's just part of it. Now, Robert, and I know you're going to go there with the physical. But we got a lot of upgrades we got to do, and then you throw in the feed and the different fluctuations with the feed. I don't know why the heck I didn't think of that before. I'm sure a lot of people don't. I mean, I think of the electric grid. I think of the wire.
Well, sure. But remember, the grid is everything. The grid is
Right.
everything from, in effect, really even you can think about the railroad network as part of the grid
Yep.
because it delivers coal to the power plant. You could think of pipelines as part of the grid because they deliver the fuel to the power plant. And then you have the power plant and the spinning generators, and then you have the wires, and then you have the transformers, and then you have the step down transformers on the pole near your house. And then you have here's the plug, right?
Yeah.
This is part of the grid too. The grid is, in fact, everything from here back to the wellhead here in Texas or the solar panel or the wind turbine. The grid is all of that. We have to think about this as in a system. It's a system of systems. And as many people have said about the electric grid, it is the world's largest machine. And I think that's a really interesting way to think about it because it is such a massive, sprawling network of networks, much of it interconnected. Not Texas isn't perfectly interconnected with the rest of the US, but much of it interconnected. And somehow, despite having 3,000, nearly 4,000 electric providers in America, over 10,000 generation sites, it all somehow works. It's just incredible that it all works. I mean, the fact that something like this, something this complicated works as well as it does is truly breathtaking.
My other fear is the vulnerability through unfortunate acts that people may want to attack our network and take
Sure.
down parts of it, which then you get that cascading effect. How do we somehow prevent that? Is there some way that people can help prevent that, or what can we do?
Um, I have a Generac, Tom.
There you go.
So, people ask me about what am I doing? I bought a Generac, and I'm married. I mentioned my wife, Lauren, earlier. Very fortunate in my life. We've been married 40 years. She's a very lucky woman. But we had this conversation now. It's about 2 years ago. And I said, well, I met a guy. He does these installs. I'd like to get a Generac. She said, how much is it? I said, $15,000. And she says, well, I don't want to spend $15,000 on that stupid thing. I'd rather go to Europe or do something else. And I said, well, I understand that. And then she says, but if we don't get it and there's a blackout, then you're going to blame me. So now we have a Generac.
And we are not sponsored by Generac.
That's how that went.
Robert, how would you like people to connect with you other than like a soft intro like I'm going to do with this student that I met today? How would you like people to connect with you? And listen, everybody, please subscribe to the Substack, Robert Substack, because it's good. And I want to get a few subscriptions off of him being on the radio show. So please do that. Would you please? Go ahead, Robert.
Sure. Well, the short answer is I'm robertbryce.substack.com. Pretty straightforward. But I'm easy to find on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. Yeah, I'm on TikTok. You bet I'm on TikTok. Yeah.
You better believe it.
Yeah, heck yeah. So I'm easy to find, Tom, on the Google. But yes, I write almost exclusively now on Substack, robertbryce.substack.com.
Rising electricity prices. Can we boil this down into something simple or not?
Well, there are many factors for what goes into electricity prices, Tom. Let's be clear. It's not just the price of coal or just the price of natural gas or the price of uranium or price of solar panels. It also includes high voltage transmission lines. It includes the local distribution networks, the cost of the linemen you need to people to maintain the systems. All of these things are in one way or another go into the electric bill. And in states like Michigan, where you also may have subsidies for certain industries, those may also be fitted into the bill as well. So the key issue, though, is that we see in specific states, and my friend Isaac Orr and my friends Isaac Orr and Mitch Rawling recently did a report showing that electricity prices in heavily Democratic states tend to be significantly higher than those in red states. Why is that? Imagine that. What's at play here? A lot of mandates, particularly for weather-dependent generation. So I think that insight that they came up with is very important. And particularly when you look at states like California, where they have all these mandates for net zero, and you have this net zero target in Michigan as well, which you won't meet. But that's one of the reasons why we see these prices are going up. That said, you also have, particularly in the eastern states, in the region, in the RTO PJM, data centers are one of the key contributing factors as well. So many factors at play here, but what we've seen, particularly in heavily Democratic states over the past few years, rapidly rising electricity prices, which are regressive. Low-income people pay more of their income for energy costs than do wealthy people. So I'm opposed to that. When it comes to that, I'm an absolute liberal. I don't think we should be taxing low-income people more than we do high-income people. But that is, in fact, what we're doing with this kind of electricity, these electricity mandates.
Personally, I think, being a Great Lakes guy, that the water situation is the worst thing, Robert. Is that in fact, is that a good point?
It's one of the key points. There's no doubt about it. And it's one of the reasons why local communities have been so concerned about this.
Right.
Like neighborhood, like real estate values, everyone everywhere cares about water and water quality and water quantity. And some of these data center projects, they take massive amounts of water for cooling. So none of this is easily resolved, but it's something that, as a reporter, I find very interesting, and have been spending a lot of time trying to get my arms around what the scale of the opposition and from where and how it is manifesting itself in different communities. So you saw something last year in Indianapolis where widespread opposition, and Google was the developer. They pulled the proposal from the Indianapolis City Council's agenda right before it was going to be voted on because they knew it was going to be voted down. So this is again, and it's not just the U.S. Like the opposition to solar, wind, batteries, the opposition to these data centers is international. We're seeing it in spades in Western Europe, and there was one project or some in Ireland, if I recall correctly. Got to do some more work on that, but again, these are massive buildings, massive footprints, massive power demand, and local people are looking at them saying, "What's in it for us?"
We don't see it that way. We're going to put that thing in your backyard anyways. Kind of the same thing, basically, right?
Sure, absolutely. And this is, the right of local control has been bedrock part of American government for decades, even I don't know longer than that. And here we have a situation where you have big moneyed interests talking this green energy talk. I could use a more colorful language
Yep.
there. These, and I think they're just climate change carpetbaggers, full stop. Climate change carpetbaggers, these big corporations, some of them publicly traded, coming into small towns across the country, many times foreign companies coming into small towns across the country and saying, we're going to try and Bigfoot you, we're going to roll over you, we're going to care what you want, we're going to get what we want. And they have friends in Lansing or they have friends in the state capitol. And there's a very heavy partisan divide because Democrats get the overwhelming majority of their votes in cities, and Republicans get a lot of their votes from rural areas. So it's a urban rural divide. It's a partisan divide. It's a class divide. It's a generational divide, and it's manifesting itself in these rejections.
I've always been enamored, Robert, with those small I forget the acronym for them, but the small units that they can like manufacture and they just drop them into place, and they're small nuclear sites. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm referring to? They're
They're
like
called
manufactured
small modular reactors. Yes.
modular. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
I've been reporting on them extensively on my website. We have SMR Intelligence US, which is a compendium of all of the SMR companies in the US. There are now more than 40 of them with 46, I think, different reactor designs. We also have the Global Intelligence, SMR Intelligence Global, which is the SMR database for compendium for all of the non-US SMR companies. The problem, Tom, isn't lack of good designs. It's not lack of potential. It's the gap between proposing a reactor, getting it permitted, and getting it built. And that's the challenge now. I'm very hopeful for nuclear. I've been pro-nuclear for a very long time. I've been saying the same thing for more than 15 years. If you're anti-carbon dioxide and you're anti-nuclear, you're pro-blackout. Well, I'm anti-blackout. But the nuclear industry in the U.S. declined over decades. It's going to take decades to bring it back.
Thank you for all of these points. They're all good for each one is a full show. That's how wide these topics are with this, everybody. And that's why it's so nice to have a friend like Robert Bryce come on our show and share his knowledge with us. So what would you like the takeaway to be this time, brother? I mean, it's such a huge topic. It's just like, what's your takeaway?
There are many, I think, Tom. Look at what's happening in Venezuela. I wrote a piece just yesterday called Energy Wars, that this latest snatching Maduro, kidnapping him is in fact what happened. This is the latest example of conflicts being focused on energy and power. We live in a very dynamic world, and the energy landscape has changed more in the last few years than it has in the last few decades. The resurgence of nuclear is an important story. I guess my takeaway for your listeners is make sure you're informed about what's really going on. There's a lot of spin, a lot of hype around energy and power. And a lot of people who are hyping and spinning things have money at stake, and they're going to try and convince you that we don't need hydrocarbons, we don't need oil, we don't need natural gas or nuclear. They're just flat wrong. And so I would encourage people, be informed and know your numbers and spend some time with it. It will be worth your while.
Having a guest like Robert Bryce now his sixth visit to this radio program just shows and validates what's good about this radio program. And it's about you, and it's about the topics and the guests and how we can help become a little more educated and show a little bit of entertainment, and have some fun. I mean, if we're not having fun, we're not having enough fun. As I say in some of my videos, we're not having enough fun. But we are having fun when we're talking to people and we're sharing great information from Robert Bryce, 2026 Power Trends. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Please subscribe to Robert's Substack if you want to get more into the power stuff. It's really, really well done. I'm serious. Until next time, everybody, I'm Papa Tom. You know, we talk about the subscriptions. Thank you so much for the views and all that good stuff. We're at almost 5 million views on YouTube. That's pretty crazy. And I don't do enough, I don't put enough time into it. And it's still almost 5 million. Until next time, everybody, thank you so much. Love you all. Peace out. Have a great day.